Welcome back. I'm joined in the studio with Mr. Ashraf Naguib, who is the Secretary General of the Asia-Egypt Business Association. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
With us also this evening is Dr. Walaa Wasfy, who is an Assistant Lecturer of Political Marketing. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sinai has been ignored probably since it was retrieved. Very little development, and all of a sudden, really out there fast and furious trying to revamp this area. Let me just pick your thoughts as Egyptians. How do you feel about the maybe strategic significance of that peninsula? If I can start with Mr. Naguib.
I mean, just its geographic location, I don't think there is much that can be added to really how significant Sinai is. But in my opinion, Sinai is just a symbolism of not only that specific piece of land that has been ignored and neglected throughout the years. We live on 6% of our total land area. So the significance of Sinai here, yes, on a strategic level, but it is again an indication of a trend that we have been ignoring a lot of our land and a lot of developments that could take place in the Western Desert, in the south of the country. So Sinai is just significance because of the Suez Canal and because of the potential and because of proximity of such an important canal like the Suez Canal is in terms of world trade and in terms of global trade. So yes, it's very, very important that we really look at what we're going to do with Sinai in terms of development, and we have to understand economic zones, the sea zone, this new, development project that we're doing is not just based on the eastern side of the canal, but is also based on the western side as well. And that is very important that we look at it as a collective approach to building and developing on the banks of the Suez Canal. So it's as important as Sinai is. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people that might think a lot of the projects that we are aspiring to build in Sinai might not need to be there, like heavy industries. We want to look at things that are related mostly to servicing the Suez Canal and the ships and the shipping industry in general. And at the same time, we want a lot of the manufacturing and the light industries, because this is something that we lack here in Egypt rather than large industry. There's a lot of other places in Egypt that we can start placing large industry that would have more strategic significance than just Sinai.
Dr. Walaa, how do you see the strategic significance of Sinai?
Of course, Sinai, yes, we have ignored since the era of mobile, let's say so, and we focus on Sinai as facing just only terrorism and with the citizens there in terms of how to face terrorism in terms of tourism. But let me talk about how to encourage businessmen to have work there, or to build factories or whatever to develop from Sinai, or to attract business or international companies to have their projects there at Sinai. We have to say that tourism does not take place only in Sinai, but now it's all over the world. So, and we are doing our best. So we have to market that. Which is more important for me, the announcement that came out from the government about Sinai and the projects there, and even the role of the military system in facing terrorism, how we deal with it, and how to make the Egyptian citizen, the normal one, feel safe to go even for tourism or for investment or whatever the kind is. I think, yes, we are focusing on it, but we have to work more and to start working in a serious and a trust way, and to gain the trust of the Egyptian citizen. If we talk about the anniversary of Suez Canal for the first year now, it's not like the inauguration, and we have to believe that. The attitude of the Egyptian citizen, it's not the same. So we have to study why that attitude or the incline or the curve goes, let me say, to a little bit downward, not interested to know what are the achievements that took place, although there are more than one project in terms of facing terrorism. So I think that the government has a very important role in announcing the projects that took place and the actions they are doing there.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because one thing that came to mind as you talk right now, we're talking about the strategic significance of that area. And in your tour statement, you've said the word terrorism like 5 or 6 times, and that makes me ask, when can we change the perception that this is the fertile land of terrorism? Because it seems now whenever we mention the word Sinai, somehow at the back of our minds, we're forgetting the mega project, we're forgetting the development, we're forgetting the natural resources, the kinds of industries, the tourism hub that can be right there, and we're concentrating, unfortunately, our shift is only towards the word terrorism. So this is how we're marketing it, by the way. We as Egyptians are even marketing Sinai this way.
When we mention Sinai, it means terrorism, or the area, or we call it the place of the real war. Yes, there is a real war, and our military system is facing a lot of terrorism because of the borders between us and Libya is now controlled by militias. I don't like to go through those political issues, but let me say that we are facing it, and we overcome up to now. And there is tourism and tourists, even if the internal tourist or the Egyptian, when travel to any place, for example, Taba or Nuweiba, or places Sinai, for just entertainment, they feel safe to go there. So we are facing it. Why not we market it in a good way, instead of just mentioning or discussing the terrorism actions that only took place, that made the tourist not to come to Egypt anymore or to Sinai. And we have to be wise enough not only to focus on Egypt, but to focus what about happening in other countries. For example, Turkey, and what is happening there, whatever its scope or not, I'll not talk about it. But when we, since 25th of Jan, when we go through that revolution and those actions since the 5 years ago, Turkey had a great marketing campaign to market itself, to attract all over the world to go there for tourism. We have to do so. Although Turkeys have its political trends and Islamic one and tourism too that it is facing, but we didn't do so. So that's why I'm telling you that we have to focus on the government more.
Do you think that this is how we should be thinking about Sinai? Hasn't the time come for us to shift our perception and maybe the language? Because we're really falling into the trap of marketing the fanatic ideologies by linking the word terrorism to Sinai, especially when we talk about development.
No, I totally agree. I think the significance comes here that till very, very recently, the Egyptian armed forces have never had a campaign since the war in Sinai, where they were allowed to actually go in what we are calling now a war on terrorism. But if we really kind of compare the situation in Sinai to the rest of the region, whether it's Libya, whether it's Syria, I mean, it's very, very small and insignificant on the scale of global terrorism.
Especially right now.
And even before so. And if you'll find that there was, and the majority of it is actually a government to security forces versus these, what we can even start calling them outlaws at this point rather than terrorists. But at the same time, we have to be very prudent. We can't deny a specific reality that is in the world right now, and it is very important for us for the future to be able to secure these borders, to secure Sinai, and make sure that incidents such as the Egypt Air flight that was obviously blown over Sinai does not happen again. But there is no country that has the best security in the whole entire universe can really fight terrorism on that level, because that is what it's called. It's called terrorism. It strikes when you don't know that it's going to strike. And in Sinai, I think that we're seeing less of that in more urban places and tourist places. The real problem here, the real issue that Sinai has, is actually the fact that we have a problem in terms of our tourism industry per se. Some of it is, yes, based on the concept that there is a security threat in Sinai. The other thing is a political motivation that we have seen in action by certain countries when something happens in our little peninsula versus the rest of the world.
Yes, we didn't see the same measures or same reports or headlines capturing what took place in France, for example.
Absolutely, but again, we have to have the self-confidence in ourselves as a nation to be able to come out and say that we have been doing the best of our efforts to avoid such situations. The problem is that we know as Egyptians, as per your question at the very beginning, is that we do lack a lot of the efficiency, and we do lack the accountability in a lot of our government institutions, as the doctor was just referring to, that we need to actually start showing the world, not just by a propaganda media type of attitude, but actually by implementing on the ground. And this is also what the doctor was saying previously regarding Sinai and the expectation level of people at this point. Yes, we did dig the Suez Canal, the corridor, and that was extremely important. A lot of people argue, not on the how and not on the why, but on the when. Was this a priority or not for us to be able to put $8 billion into a project like that? Now, if we wouldn't have done that, we would have continued for the next 10 and 20 years having these conversations about why did we not, you know, expand the Suez Canal? Why are we not building on the banks of the Suez Canal? And this is the real significance of it. It's not that it was a priority or not, because really the $8 billion wouldn't have done much. Now, the second thing that we have to understand that this
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry for a second, because with us on the line is His Excellency Minister Mohammed Shaker, Minister of Electricity. Minister Shaker, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you easily, yes.
Sir, you, before we go into subsidy cut, maybe what would be of more significance to our viewers overseas is the concern. We just celebrated the first anniversary of the initiation, so to speak, of the Suez corridor. And one of the concerns whenever we talk to any foreign investor is energy.
Yeah.
Whenever I come to Egypt, I'm concerned about energy. And maybe now that we are lucky enough to have you on the line, maybe you can comment on this. Is there a concern about setting up business in Egypt due to energy issues?
No, I think you're right very much in saying that the concern is energy. Because of this, actually, we took the plan or took the initiative in order to improve all the energy availability and continuity of. You know that we already contracted Siemens company in order to install 3 very big power stations. Each one produces 4,800 megawatts with an overall capacity of 14,400 megawatts. And this is actually under construction now. Construction is in progress and is according to the proper time, the time schedule. For instance, we're going to install one in Bani Suef. The completion so far of this power station is about 46%. In Borolos, the completion is about 40%. And the new capital is the completion is about 30%. We expect actually that they will be injecting power in the network starting by the end of this year, 2016. The first injection will be about 4,400 megawatts by the end, as I said, end of 2016. By the end of 2017, they will add another 4,400 megawatts. So the overall capacity will be about 8,800, and in May 2018, the full 14,400 will be available in the network. In the meantime, as well, we are strengthening the transmission network. We are constructing now about 1,200 kilometers of 500 kV transmission line. This is almost similar to the overall existing network in the time being now. And so far, the continuity of power and the availability of power and energy is very much secured. And we thought actually the first thing in order to attract the investment and the investors in Egypt is to secure the supply of energy. Anybody now would like to build a factory or do a business and require any amount of power, we are ready to serve without any problem whatsoever.
Sir, can you tell us, in a country which enjoys wind and sun and whatever, when can we reach a stage where we say Egypt can, well, maybe I'm going to be overly ambitious and say, when will my country start to export energy from natural sources like wind and solar?
We actually have a plan, and by the year 2022, we hope that the amount of energy generated from the renewable energy, whether it's wind and solar, will be about 20% of the generated capacity. By the year 2030, this will increase to about 30%, and hopefully, we have some studies, we hope that by the year 50 will be about 55% of energy generated will be renewable. Definitely, we are actually having this in mind. We would like to have Egypt as a hub in the region.